So I recently went to a beautiful wedding with my girlfriend, and in the midst of the mingle, just after the reception, we sat down and started talking to a very friendly, much older couple. And one of the first questions they asked was, "Who are you?" And today's podcast is going to be more of a free flow. I usually have a script that I kind of go over and read through. I do still have some bullet points and some questions, but this is going to be more of something that I'm just going to kind of talk. I'm going to further the existential questions that I've had. I talked about what you're worth, and today really is going to be talking about who are we or who are you? How do we define ourselves? I believe there's an evolution of our own self-image and what we end up striving for down the line. What did we see ourselves when we were 5 years old versus 10 years old, 15 and 20s, and now me entering my 30s? And how do we kind of see ourselves in the future? And so when Pam and I got asked this question, obviously, what did we say? We defined ourselves as veterinarians. I spent the last 10 years of my life dedicating to becoming a veterinarian. So it's primarily what I ate and slept on. So I think just by sheer volume of my time, I've come to define myself as a veterinarian. Now, obviously, the people listening to this, probably around the same age as me, we're probably in your mid to late 20s. You're also a veterinarian. And when someone asks you who you are, probably the first thing you think about is a veterinarian. You obviously didn't think about this 15 years ago or even 10 years ago. Question that I've kind of been thinking is this something I'd be answering in 10 years? So when I'm 40 and someone asks me who I am I going to say that I'm a veterinarian? Now I know that, it's probably easier to just kind of tell someone what you do as an occupation. It does that in itself already explains a lot about who you are. And being a veterinarian is kind of nice, right? I would call BS on anyone who doesn't like the idea of being a doctor. There's a level of prestige to it. I wrote a blog on this too. I do find it very ego-filling to, at the end of the day, know that I'm a doctor, know that I have this kind of education and prestige within society that no one else can do without the certain degree. It's not something that I find is wrong. I don't think that I'm now an egomaniac who thinks I'm better than others. I don't think that's fair to put on other people who go after this kind of degree. But it's nice when I tell people I'm a veterinarian and I see their face light up with respect. Now, kind of going into being a doctor, I'm not a big personal fan of having people call me Dr. Tam. I actually, as a GP, I would introduce myself as Alfred. Unfortunately, now going into emergency, in order to kind of set that level of initial conversation with owners, especially in such a high intensity environment, I do have to introduce myself as Dr. Tam. But really, I never really preferred being called that. I personally like the fact that I've achieved this, but it's not really something that I need to tell others. Or at least need others to call me Dr. Tam. But then again, I know a lot of vets disagree with this, and I feel like they need to establish this level of respect and understanding between your client and yourself. And so, again, this is going to be something that people really have their own differences on. But I really do want to keep going back to this question about who you are. Let's go back to when we were a child, and when someone asks us, or we asked ourselves who we are. I frankly can't remember what I would say. But how about when we're a little bit older, like our teenager self? What did you think about yourself? I feel like a lot of us, we defined ourselves by what everyone thought of us or how everyone kind of perceived us. And we obviously tried to shape that as best as we could. And that was kind of the frustration with our teenage lives, is because we wanted to shape something that we couldn't exactly fully control, just for one experience of being able to manipulate that. And also just sometimes it's inevitable to kind of change who you really are at the core. So for me personally, as a kid, I was at 5, or I guess more like 7 or 8, I was obese. I was very fat. And that actually was entirely how I defined myself for probably a decade. I would say until I was at least 15 years old, I identified myself as fat. And this was because that was everything everyone ever talked about to me in my life. My family, my friends, it's when you're joking and bickering with the other guys, they're going to just kind of find ways to make fun of you. And their main thing for me was I was fat. And I was fat. I knew it. I didn't like it. But I also, there's obviously, we can go into many different reasons of why, but that was me for many years. And that's obviously something I still struggle with in terms of weight. But it took a very long time until I was able to kind of get out of that insecurity and that full definition. And that really wasn't until I think about 15 when I was a teenager. And then I started actually feeling a little bit more attractive and getting attention from other people. This is something about me at the core that I can't change, but I love getting attention from other people. But now you add on this teenager with all these emotions. You're both angry and horny at the same time, and you want everyone to like you, and you say and you do these stupid things because you think that's what people want to do. And so at 15, I probably identified myself as a water polo loving kid or man, I guess is probably something I was hoping to be. Entering college as my young adult, I would have to say that it was almost identical. It was almost a haze of who I was. I was introduced to so many different people at so many different intelligence levels, many of them so much smarter than me, that I also just kind of cut myself off from really trying to identify who I was. I think that's obviously a big part of college, and people will argue that college is not worth it, but I find it to be one of the most invaluable experiences of my life because it allowed me to finally settle in and crack down on who I am at the core and what it means and what it takes to be me and the best of me. Afterwards, you then go from a young adult in college and then now fast forward about 5 to 10 years and I'm now an adult contributing to society and I'm a doctor. But I'm also a voice actor, or trying to be. I do narrations, I do podcasting. I recently picked up some other things on the side. But I still probably identify myself as a doctor. But this is the knee-jerk reaction when I was first asked this question by this old couple at this wedding was, I didn't want to tell them that I was a veterinarian. And I'm not ashamed of it. Obviously, I kind of just told you that I'm very proud of it. But it's almost as if I'm trying to set a precedence of who I am. And I wish that there was some other way of being able to give someone a better answer, as opposed to, well, here is some expectations just by one word, veterinarian. And I'm curious to know what you guys think, right? People in the same field, again, we're very proud. We worked so hard to be this. But is this something that you also want to answer in 10 years? Do you want to still give people the same answer in that time? And how do you want to define yourself in 10 years? I think a lot about this, or I've been thinking a lot about this recently. And I'd like to define myself as a father, as a husband. But is that also all I want to do? Well, at this time, yes. But who the fathers and husbands out there, where do you stand now? I'd love to hear what people who have already accomplished what I strive to accomplish, where they are and where their mentality is, because I feel like it's constantly evolving, and I want to stimulate the idea that we want to continue to further ourselves. My whole thing was like, okay, I've been a vet for 2 years now. I've been telling people and defining myself as a veterinarian for 2 years, and I've kind of had enough of it. I want to still be a veterinarian. I still have a lot to learn as a veterinarian, but I don't want to tell anyone that I don't want to define myself as this anymore. I almost feel like it stereotypes me in one certain way, despite the whatever respect and admiration you might get from society when they find out that you are. But I think it obviously takes a little bit more than just, one conversation for someone to really understand who you are. Again, food for thought. Obviously, in the future, if I have, let's say, 100 million followers, I think by sheer number and definition, I'm some type of influencer, right? And that could be either by my podcasting or some other social media method. But there obviously is there's a very large contributing factor to what society and that external image that people feed into you that then shapes what you believe you are. Hence, when I was a child, me being overweight, I was then defined myself as someone that was overweight. Eventually, you start to believe it, and then you fit into that, right? And I think I also just want to add into the idea that, we have, as veterinarians, been living and breathing and eating and sleeping in this whole dedication of our lives as veterinarians. And I hope that veterinarians that are listening to this, or anyone who's listening to this, that have dedicated so much time and energy into it, have started to kind of get towards mastering that craft, that, in 5-10 years, you're not still on this. I value the idea of well-roundedness. I hope that there's other things in your life that you can have attention to, that you can also define yourself as. I feel like a lot of people do really get stuck into this idea of their image that they wanted to be since they were a child. And I'm not saying it's childish to continue to stick with it. No. Obviously, of course, it's a very, very respectable, and I'll say this as many times as I need to, a very respectable and honorable profession. But I personally am concerned is when I'm 40 years old, if someone's going to ask me who I am and I say I'm a veterinarian and that's all I can say, I don't think that's good. I feel like I need to have many things on there that I can confidently say defines me. And I hope that it would be some kind of great podcaster, someone who's mastered his craft with his voice, with his tonations, with his public speaking abilities, someone who's been a great father, someone who's been a great husband, someone who's super good at coffee. Everyone who knows that I've been trying to get into it, some bougie coffee guy. I mean, I want to be able to have something else, some other skill that I can hold on to that feeds my humanity. Because when you're just stuck with a very linear image, that's not exactly what makes you human. And I hope the vet techs that I know of who pretty much just dedicate their lives to just the horrible labor you put yourselves through. You pretty much sleep, you come to work, you dedicate your lives to these doctors and animals, and then you go home and you repeat it again. And that goes to the same with many vets and receptionists and anyone in this field. You do this day in and day out. And I feel like there's no extra time you put away for anything else. I need to encourage and urge you, those who are really putting everything into this, to take a step back, find something else to define yourself. Because in 5-10 years, if you're still giving the same answer in the same way, I feel like I have some concern of how that turns out. And I really do feel like as people, we are so much more versatile. We're so much deeper than all of this. All right, so that is my existentialist kind of blabber about who we are. It's obviously kind of scratching the surface. I have no significant research and study on these things. It's been a topic that I have been thinking about since this wedding, and it's been constantly on my mind, just about defining myself as a human being. I know a lot of people, and I see a lot of people put all this time into this, and as great as and noble as it is, I also just get concerned about it. So take care of yourselves, guys. All right. So I think the people that have been close to me as of late would probably have an idea of what this episode's OMA sarcoma is. I think I'm a couple of days late from my typical 2-week mark of these episodes, and the recent affairs is going to pretty much explain why. So this week's OMA, or kind of something that I like, is mixed martial arts. I have finally decided to exercise and be healthy. I've had a gym membership for, the last X amount of years, and I just pretty much spent X amount of dollars a month and went maybe 6 times. I personally don't have the self-discipline. I also am very picky about my workouts. I don't like circuit trainings, or at least not the ones where you're just doing, jump squats, burpees, push-ups, sprint 500 meters here. And that's just not my thing. It doesn't fulfill me. So I ended up quitting the gym, and I found that there were 2 gyms close to me, about a mile away each. One is a boxing gym, and the other one is a Muay Thai and jiu-jitsu gym. So they each had free classes that I joined to see how it was, and I loved both of them. So I joined both of those gyms. I do boxing on Mondays and Wednesdays and Muay Thai Jiu Jitsu on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's been 2 weeks. I've been getting my butt kicked, especially in Jiu Jitsu because there's actually active sparring. And I could not be happier. I mean, it's everyone that I've been working with has been, either the coaching staff has been so great. They'll really push you into it. I love the athletic demand. I love the hand-eye coordination that you require. I love the overall environment of it. I would have to say, just very briefly, that boxing, I think, is a more cardio demanding intensity sport. If anyone wanted to actually go for like a high calorie loss, I would go into boxing. If you wanted something that's a little bit more fun, I think, where you have more full body or you get a kick, obviously, Muay Thai is going to be your best bet. If you want something that's literally that you want to dedicate the rest of your life doing and crafting and getting better at, Jiu-Jitsu is probably going to be your best martial arts. I mean, this is something that I didn't really know how extensive this was until I started taking it. And there are people who've been doing this for decades and still are just learning. And it's been incredible to kind of meet such great people. And I mean, some people are my age. I've been doing this for years, and they're nothing but supportive. And they love the sport so much that even though you have no idea what you're doing, they're so patient because they just love to share what jiu-jitsu is and showing you how to do these certain moves. It's a really incredible experience for all three of these that I've had. So I'd have to say that the last 2 weeks have been one of the best kind of experiences in terms of physical activity for me. And me approaching 30, my whole goal is to be #fit for 30. So hopefully I'm going to be able to maintain this, but I've really been enjoying this. My sarcoma, and this is again, other people who are close to me are probably going to know about this, but it's probably going to be car issues. I spent the last week my car suddenly just had issues. It's about a 15-year-old Hyundai Tucson. I got it from my dad. He's taken tremendously good care of it, but 160,000 miles on a car, I mean, it's been around for 15 years. You're bound to start having some issues. And unfortunately, the water pump was gone. It was just completely broken. It was overheating my car. Eventually, it just got to the point where my car was having a very difficult time driving. Immediately took it to a mechanic who couldn't really fix it. So they told me to go to the dealership, which is kind of notorious for being a little bit more expensive. But what I want to talk about is, it was a very bad experience for me, but it is also not really anyone's fault. And this is something where it kind of translates into veterinary medicine. I think a lot of us vets are seen as mechanics or vice versa, right? Where, oh, geez, I have to go to the vet. They're going to gouge me an arm and a leg. And it's exactly the same way we feel about mechanics, right? So I was very patient. I tried my best not to give these guys a hard time because I knew I was going to spend a ton of money because I knew that this car had some serious issues. I just had a feeling, and it was right. I spent a lot of money trying to fix this dang car. It is now fixed and everything's back to normal, but there was obviously delays. I was told one thing and then told another. The worst thing is when I was told that the car was ready. When I came to pick it up, I paid my big bill. It turns out it wasn't fixed. And so then I had to leave it again longer and then had to pay an additional bill to fix that. And that is something that happens in veterinary medicine, right? There's so many different things in medicine and in mechanics that can go wrong. And I, as someone in this field, I tried my best to be understanding of that. And what's incredible is that I feel like it paid off. My relationship with these guys, they were extremely apologetic. They were very upfront that this was a really unfortunate situation for me. I feel like they did their best to kind of accommodate from the frustration on me being compliant, me being easy to work with. I think just kind of made that easier for them as well. Obviously, there are people out there who will fight and want to talk to the manager and maybe get more. I personally don't have the energy and that kind of personality for it. It kind of takes a lot out of me to show people my hard emotions. So that's kind of how I ended up going with it. All right. So again, let me know who you are, and let me know if anyone's kind of been doing anything that has driven their physical health. I'd love to hear if you're doing, I know a lot of people are on the keto diet. I don't know enough about it to judge you. Keto diet, or they've been doing CrossFit. People started running. I know I have a friend who's been listening. Thank you, D, who's been training for a half marathon. I know people who've been weightlifting for a very long time. People with car issues. How do you go about these kinds of things? Do you think that, vets and mechanics are kind of seen pretty similarly in this kind of aspect? How do you treat people in the service industry? If you have any comments, please post it on the Instagram. Thank you guys so much for listening. This is kind of a new style for me. I wanted to see how a free flow, it's a little bit more comfortable for me to say. I think there's probably a little bit more pauses, but again, I wanted to try this out. Feedback on this as well, if you have any. I'm very open to hearing about this. I look forward to having, again, some interviews very soon. I actually have so many people who are fantastic and want to share their own personal stories of who they are and what defines them as veterinarians. So I really hope that we're able to get this kind of going soon so the world can really know who we are. All right. Thanks so much for listening again, guys. I'll catch you guys later.